Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
My name is Ellis Varick. I'm 43 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I was the Director of Strategic Sales at Alton Bray Technologies in Denver, Colorado. And I'll never forget the sentence that burned it all down. Ellis, I think our paths diverge here. That's what Malcolm Bray, my boss of 11 years, said to me, standing in that cold glass office like he was talking about weather. Not thank you. Not I'm sorry. Not even you did your best. Just, our paths diverge. I remember blinking. I thought I misheard. Because I had built that path. There was no sales department before I walked through those doors. I was the first hire. I designed the pipeline from scratch. I onboarded every CRM system, trained every damn rep, fought for every major contract. I worked weekends. I missed birthdays. All to help build his dream. And now I was being erased from it. At first, I thought it was performance related. That maybe I slipped. Maybe I didn't close hard enough in Q4. But no, Malcolm sat down, crossed his manicured fingers over his Mont Blanc pen, and said it. I've decided to bring in fresh energy. Younger blood. Someone who understands the new wave of enterprise thinking. And then the door opened. I turned. And in walked Sterling. His son. Sterling Bray. 26. Fresh out of an overpriced MBA program in Palo Alto. A guy whose most complex negotiation was probably deciding what toppings to get on his acai bowl. That's who they gave my job to. I looked Malcolm dead in the eyes. You're replacing me with your son? He just nodded. It's a family business, Ellis. Always has been. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I stood up. Took the brass nameplate off my desk. Packed the small bonsai tree I kept next to my monitor. And I walked out of that building with my head higher than it had been in years. Because somewhere in my gut, I knew, if they thought they were getting rid of me, they were about to learn what happens when you set fire to the wrong man's legacy. The first few weeks after Alton Bray, I felt like I was grieving a death. Not just of the job, but of the illusion I'd been living in for over a decade. I had told myself I was building something with them. That Malcolm and I were partners, that I was part of the fabric. Turns out, I was just scaffolding. Something to be torn down once the building was ready. I stayed in my apartment in Lodo most days. Walked around Cheeseman Park in the afternoons. Took meetings I didn't care about. Recruiters called, offering roles that sounded like consolation prizes. VP of Sales at a logistics startup in Phoenix. Head of BizDev for some VR sports tech thing in Seattle. But I wasn't hungry for titles anymore. I was hungry for clarity. For control. And for the first time since I was 29, I had no boss. No weekly pipeline reviews. No late-night emails asking for just one more revision. It was terrifying. And it was freeing. Then came a phone call that shifted everything. Mara Reeds. One of the best SDRs I'd ever hired, brilliant, ruthless in the best way, and loyal like a wolf. She called out of the blue. I heard what happened, Ellis. Total bullshit. I walked out last week. So did 2 others. You thinking of starting something? I hadn't said it out loud yet. But she did. Something sparked. I spent the next 3 nights on my balcony with a legal pad and a bottle of Highland Park 18. Mapping out what I knew. Where the gaps were in the market. What big companies were missing. What sales reps were begging for but never got. Not another CRM tool. Not another SaaS dashboard. I kept circling one phrase. Sales intelligence with a backbone. What if I built a company that didn't just give teams data, but gave them the nerve to use it right? Real sales coaching, backed by AI, but driven by human instinct. A platform and a mindset. I called it Veridon. The name came from an old Latin word I stumbled across meaning green, fresh, unspoiled. Like the kind of company I wished I had worked for. I texted Mara. Then called an old friend from my UPenn days, Malik Calder, a full-stack wizard who'd worked for Tesla and then burned out. I've got something, I told him. It's not safe. It's not easy. But it's going to punch the market right in the mouth. He didn't even ask questions. Just said, "Where do I send my laptop?" By the end of the month, we were 4 people, working out of my loft. Eating noodles, coding like lunatics, and tearing up whiteboards until 3 a.m. And every time I felt doubt creeping in, I'd picture Sterling Bray sitting in my old chair. Probably trying to decipher a sales report while sipping some $9 latte he didn't even like. And I'd whisper, "Hope you're comfy, kid. You've got no idea what's coming." We landed our first client on a Tuesday morning in February, 4 months after I got fired. The company was Cinder Lane Capital, a boutique investment firm out in Austin. They had a killer product but a clueless sales team, all instinct, no discipline. They were burning leads like firewood and didn't even know it. Mara had cold emailed their COO on a hunch. We flew down the same week. I remember walking into that boardroom, no slides, no buzzwords, just me, Mara, and Malik. The COO, guy named Vincent Rowe, looked skeptical as hell. "So you're telling me a guy who just got fired is gonna fix our sales ops?" I smiled. Not fake. Not polite. The kind of smile that comes from someone who's already lost everything once. "No," I said. "I'm telling you the guy who built a $70 million pipeline before getting stabbed in the back by his boss's son is gonna show your team how to close like goddamn assassins." He stared for a second, then laughed. "All right, Varick. Show me something sharp." That was the turning point. We gave them 2 weeks of Veridon, live call coaching, real-time feedback loops, and our prototype platform that turned sales data into a battlefield map. By week 3, their conversion rate had jumped 27%. By month 2, they asked to sign an annual retainer, 6 figures. That was our first real blood. The first time I felt it in my bones. We're not just building a company, we're building a storm. Word got around. Startups in Salt Lake City, fintech firms in Miami, even a B2B platform in Toronto. Everyone wanted that team that came out of nowhere and broke Cinder Lane's plateau. We didn't have investors. We didn't have office space. But we had the one thing no amount of VC money can buy. A bone-deep desire to prove every bastard wrong. Especially them. Because of course, I kept tabs. Alton Bray Technologies was floundering. They launched a new sales initiative, Vision Path, under Sterling's watch. It bombed. Badly. 3 major clients walked. One of the reps I trained, Cam Gwynn, messaged me on LinkedIn. Said the floor was chaos. No leadership, no direction, and worse, no trust. It's like a ship with no captain, Ellis. They don't even say your name anymore. It's like they're trying to erase you. Good. Let them try. Because the louder they pretended I never existed, the more it meant they felt me in every crack of that company. Every deal they couldn't close. Every confused meeting. Every gap where I used to be. And I wasn't done yet. It wasn't enough to win. Not yet. I wanted them to feel it. Not just my absence, my shadow. Veridon was growing fast. Too fast. By the 6th month, we had 12 full-time people, 3 contractors, and enough clients to make us cash flow positive without raising a dime. But that wasn't the real victory. The real victory came wrapped in a manila envelope, sent to my home address. A cease and desist. From Alton Bray Technologies. Claiming I had violated a non-compete clause in my original employment contract. Funny, because I never signed one. That was intentional. Malcolm always said, you don't need that crap with people you trust. Guess trust has a shelf life. I could have ignored it, but instead I called their legal counsel directly. Left a voicemail. Tell Malcolm he can sue me if he wants. But if he does, I'll go public. With every ghost deal I closed to make his quarterly numbers look good. Every time I covered for his idiotic nephew's expense reports. Every compliance risk I buried to protect his image. I won't fire the first shot. But if he wants a war, I promise I'll be the last man standing. They never called back. And that's when I realized they were scared. Not of what I did, but of what I knew. See, Malcolm built a company with polish but no spine. No loyalty. He wanted control, and when he couldn't control me, he cut me out. But he forgot something. You can't cut out the foundation and expect the building to stand. Then came the deal that changed everything. A Fortune 200 cybersecurity firm, Ventronox, was struggling to break into the mid-market. Their CRO had heard about Veridin through a contact at Cinderlane. We flew to DC, pitched them hard, and landed a multi-million-dollar transformation contract. That deal put us in the spotlight. TechCrunch wrote about us. CNBC mentioned a stealth mode Denver startup changing the game in enterprise sales enablement. And just like that, the knife turned. 2 weeks later, Mara walked into my office, well, the room we were now calling my office, holding her phone like it was a live grenade. Her face was unreadable. "You're not gonna believe this," she said. "Guess who just scheduled a meeting through the website?" I raised an eyebrow. She turned the phone. Malcolm Bray. The man who told me our paths had diverged. Now he was asking to reconnect. Subject line. Discussion, strategic collaboration opportunity. He didn't even have the stones to say it plainly. I stared at that email for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because for the first time, I saw the full picture. He wasn't just flailing. He was drowning. And I was the only life raft he had left. But I wasn't throwing ropes anymore. I didn't answer the email right away. Didn't need to. Silence can be louder than rage, and I wanted Malcolm to hear it echo. But deep down, I knew I'd have to face him eventually. Not for him. For me. So I told Mara to schedule the meeting. Virtual. 20 minutes. No promises. She raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I nodded. I want to see his face when he realizes he doesn't own me anymore. The call came through on a Thursday. 3 p.m. sharp. I clicked join. There he was. Same tailored jacket. Same smug smirk tucked under $50 stubble. But he looked smaller. And next to him, Sterling. Still trying to grow into that suit. Still pretending to understand the language of wolves. Malcolm cleared his throat. "Ellis. Good to see you." I said nothing. Just stared. He kept going. "I'll get right to it. We've hit some challenges. Internal restructuring. Losses in Q2. The usual. I think there's an opportunity here. To heal old wounds. To rebuild trust." Then came the pitch. "We'd like to formally offer you the position of Executive Vice President of Strategy and Sales. You'd report directly to me. We're prepared to discuss equity. Competitive package. You'd be back where you belong." I didn't laugh. Didn't smile. I leaned forward just enough for him to see it in my eyes. "You think I want to come back to the company that gutted me for nepotism and a tie?" I nodded at Sterling, who shifted in his seat. "You didn't fire me because I failed. You fired me because I succeeded too well. You got scared that I was building something bigger than you." Malcolm's voice dropped. "Ellis, don't be dramatic." I cut him off. "No. You don't get to tell me how to feel. You took something I gave my life to and handed it to a child. And now you're realizing that loyalty isn't something you own, it's something you earn." I paused. Let it sink. Then, calmly, "Veridin doesn't need you. But you? You needed me the moment I walked out your door. I ended the call. Didn't wait for a reply. Mara walked in a few minutes later, saw the look on my face, and smiled. "So, what now?" I stood, grabbed my jacket, and walked toward the elevator. "Now," I said, "we build something so big they can't even say our name without choking on it." The call with Malcolm stayed with me for exactly 10 minutes. Then it was gone. Not because it didn't matter, but because it used to. And that was the difference. We kept building. By the time summer rolled around, Veridon had 32 full-time employees, clients on 3 continents, and a wait list that stretched 2 quarters ahead. We moved into a real office in Rhino, high ceilings, exposed brick, a freight elevator that rattled just enough to remind us where we started. Mara ran sales. Malik became CTO. I took on the strange, humbling role of founder. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't leading out of fear or survival. I was leading from choice. I watched a new generation of reps, smart, scrappy, unfazed by old politics, take our platform and own it. I'd walk through the bullpen and see whiteboards filled with strategy, not desperation. I'd hear laughter in meetings, not tension. This was mine. Not because I owned the shares, because I owned the mistakes, the scars, the rebuild. Veridon wasn't revenge. It was correction, a rebalancing of the scales. One afternoon, 6 months to the day after that call with Malcolm, Mara forwarded me an article. Alton Bray Technologies announces strategic downsizing, restructuring leadership after client losses. Sterling was out. Malcolm was stepping back. They were looking for an acquisition, a soft exit. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just closed my laptop and walked out onto the roof of the office, where the sun was melting into the Denver skyline like butter on hot steel. This city had watched me fall. Now it was watching me rise. A junior rep came up behind me, Jackson, bright kid from Flagstaff. He asked if I had a minute to look at a proposal. I nodded. Of course. Always. Because that's what I had now. Time. Clarity. A team that didn't need to be managed, just believed in. That's the thing they never understood at Alton Bray. You can't fake vision. You can't buy loyalty. And you sure as hell can't kill someone who's already walked through fire. They tried to end my story. But all they did was write the beginning of a better one. My name is Ellis Varick. I was replaced. Undervalued. Forgotten. But I didn't fight to get back in. I built the door they'll never be allowed to walk through again.